Welcome to Third Man in the Ring. First of all, I want to tell you guys, please get on YouTube, subscribe, tell your friends to subscribe. We have a great guest today. Good friend of mine, Tom Taylor. He's been all over the world. He's had great fights. You've probably seen him in Gervonta Davis fight, Barrios fight. Even though he's been a referee less years than myself, he's actually one of my mentors. He's one of our trainers. But right now I want to sit down with Tom, and you guys could hear how he got in the sport, what he does. But right now, Tom Taylor. Come on in, Tom. Thank you for coming on, brother.
Absolutely,
Thank you, bro.
Absolutely, man.
Sit down, man. Enjoy your. Let's talk. Let's talk. First of all, I know you guys are probably saying, we look alike in the body. Hey, what could I say, man? But Tom does his own working out. But man, he looks sharp, don't he? So Tom, tell me, where'd you grow up at?
So originally, I'm from Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
Grew up, I'm one of 8 kids. Father and mother were married 60 plus years until my father just passed away a few years ago. My mom's still alive, she's 88, but grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Again, one of 8 kids. Mother was a waitress. As long as I've known her, she was a waitress until she retired, and my father was a machine repairman for Johnson's Controls for 40 plus years, and grew up middle class, barely middle class, and just, had a great family, had a great childhood.
And you're a twin, aren't you,
I have a twin sister, 12 minutes older.
Tom's a twin.
So I'm actually 12 minutes older than my twin sister.
There you go, he's older though.
Yeah, it paid off.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah, definitely. But growing up, I played sports. In high school, it was 3 sports. It was football, wrestling, and then baseball in the spring. But I always loved boxing, and my family could never understand where that love of boxing came from. But when I was a kid, about 8, 9 years old, I had a very good friend of mine I hung out with all the time, and his father belonged to a athletic club in downtown Milwaukee, and it was called the Milwaukee Athletic Club. And they would have boxing there every once in a while, live professional boxing. Never seen it before, and he called me one day and said, hey, my dad's, we're gonna go down to the sports club and go swimming and stuff. It was in the winter time, so indoor swimming was, okay, that's gonna be great. So went down and walked past the gymnasium and saw a live boxing event going on, and I asked him if we could get in. And we went in and watched a couple, and I was just
astonished, huh?
I was like, wow, This is the coolest thing ever. So, I'm 52, so back when I was a kid.
Excuse me, and mind you guys, today's the 14th of January. Tom's birthday was
yesterday.
Friday
the 13th.
So, happy birthday, Tom.
Thank you, brother.
Birthday.
Thank you, man. But saw that boxing back, when we were younger. They played free boxing on network TV, and I'd always make it a point to go in and watch that. And again, my family could never understood where that love for boxing came from, but I just have always had it. So fast forward, in 1994, I moved out to California.
And what made you move out here?
The weather, and I can't get it. It can't be any more simple. I was 23 years old. The last winter I spent in Wisconsin, it was 13 below zero for a week straight, and I knew at 23 this is not how I want to live my life. So made the decision. My twin sister had moved to California prior to me 4 years earlier, so I'd been out to visit a few times, and just knew it was a great opportunity to come out. There's a lot of opportunities out here, so I moved out here, lived with her for a couple months, and then moved out and got my own place. But during that time, again, just always loved boxing. When there were big fights on, I'd have fight parties at the house. We'd have, I'd have people over, cater food, or else I'd grill a bunch of food and we'd watch the big fights. And then it got to a point where I'm like, God, I really want to get into this. I bought season tickets to Friday night fights.
Get into what, as far as
into
what?
Officiating. I really wanted to. I knew I love the sport. Certainly didn't want to get punched in the face, so I figured, what's the next best thing?
It's too handsome to get punched in the face. Right?
I don't know about that one, but let's be an official. Let's see what it takes to be a referee or a judge or some capacity in the boxing world. I love the sport. So in the meantime, I bought season tickets for Friday night fights when they used to have them at the old Arrowhead Pond.
Oh yeah.
So I had front row seats, and every time I went to one of those events, I tried talking to one of the referees. Hey, how do you become a referee? How do you do this? And nobody wanted to help me. I'll tell you, nobody. And I'm like, okay, looks like I'm gonna have to try to do this on my own. Yeah. So Ray, and I don't know if I've ever really told you the story, but I'm in the gym one day working out, and there's this older gentleman by the name of His last name is Kennedy. I don't see him anymore. He hasn't been around in a long time. But he used to wear remember those old boxing trunks that were real wide and came down to the top of the knees, and then those leather boots that laced all the way up? He'd wear those to the gym. All right, and he had this real thick German accent. Oh, his name's Tony Kennedy. Used to be a pro. And I said, Tony, you used to box? He goes, yeah. I go, I've been trying to figure out how to become a referee for the longest time, and nobody in Sacramento returns my calls. You know, I have season tickets. No referee will want to talk to me about it. And he literally said, and excuse my French, he said, fuck that. Wrote down a number and said, call this guy. And guess who it was? Dean Loheis.
Wow.
Chief athletic inspector at the time.
Yeah, Dean.
So I called Dean, and Dean misunderstood my conversation with him. He thought I was an established referee already, and I said, I'm was looking forward to any clinics that you might have. And he says, as a matter of fact, we got a clinic coming up at the DoubleTree in Orange, and this was in 2007. 2007. So I show up to 2 weeks later. I'm like, this is a hot lead. I can't wait. This is going to be great. I show up, and it's every professional referee I've ever seen on TV, every judge I've ever heard their names. And I show up to this clinic.
Where was I at?
You were there. I remember seeing you there. Absolutely. Wow. And I show up to this clinic, and I see all these people that I've seen on TV, their names I've heard, and they split the groups up. So the judges went into one, referees went into another convention center, and I walked in, and there was not a seat in the house except for all the way in the front. I walked up to the front, and I looked over, and there was one seat in the middle open, and the gentleman sitting next to that seat was David Mendoza.
Oh, okay.
And I looked at David.
May he rest in peace.
May he rest in peace, yes. I looked over and I asked him, does anybody, I said, you're David Mendoza, aren't you? And he said, yes, I am. He goes, do we know each other? I said, no. I said, is anybody sitting there? He goes, no, have a seat. I sat next to David, and he said, so what state are you licensed with? I said, I'm not. I'm trying to figure out how to become a referee. He goes, you're not supposed to be here. He goes, but you know what? Sit here. And I ended up sitting there.
Props to David.
Props for David. He could have very easily said, hey, take a hike. You can't be in here. Yeah, right. And for the next 2 straight days, David saved a seat for me right next to him. And I took notes of everything David said that day. And he's the one who actually got me into the amateurs. In fact, my first show ever was a small show out at VFW out in Pomona, I believe it was, and I was a timekeeper. So he introduced me to the amateurs, and then again, God rest his soul, he took a liking to me. Yeah. We became not only my first mentor, but an extremely close friend of mine. Got very close with him and his family, his daughter, his wife Terry, his daughter Natalie, and his son Gabe. And he did a couple big fights too as well. He did some big fights. But he'd mentor me to a certain level. And then by the grace of God, I got into the pros and met some additional mentors in Jack Reese and Pat Russell. And David gave me this amazing foundation. And then between Pat Russell and Jack Reese, they took me to another level. It took me here, and then these guys really made me understand, the philosophy.
So how many years you've been a pro now?
I'm in my 13th.
13. And you know what? I'm not blowing smoke. I've been in since '98. He's been in 13 years. Tom he's right here, man. And I don't just say that to, you know what I mean? A lot of guys that make it here, they tend to, I'm not going to say no names, they tend to I ain't got nothing for you, but I appreciate it. This guy will come out and he'll tell me, Ray, what could you have done better? Or Ray, could I have done anything better? And that says a lot about his officiating. And this is, again, I'm not a hater. When I see Tom in the ring doing big fights, I've always told our officials, you shine, I shine.
I was just going to bring that up, Ray. I tell you.
He looks bad, I look bad. But again, Tom will go in there and get out and still come up to me, even another official. What could I have done better? And you know what? That's what's awesome about this group of officials that will help each other. Again, you shine, I shine, and I appreciate it.
Ray, that's one of the first things I remember about you is the first decent sized event I did. I mean, those are your club level shows, but a decent show that we did where we were actually going to be on TV, and it was one of my first ones. And that was the first thing you said, man. You came up to me. Everybody else, there's a lot of haters in this business, and they want to see people fail. And you came up to me and you wished me good luck. And you said, listen, you shine, I shine. Go do your thing. Go do what you know. And you're right. We've got a group, and I'm not saying everybody, but there's a handful of guys like you, Jack, Pat, Max DeLuca, a few other guys that we know we can step out of that ring, and I can come to you and say, Ray, what should I have done different or better? And you'll get that feedback, that honest feedback where it's, hey, you're my buddy, but I'm not going to sugarcoat shit.
That's right.
I'm going to tell you when you fucked up.
Let me tell you, they could be a little rough, man. But you know what? You walk away saying to yourself, you're right, I could have done that. And then next time you remember, I remember Tom told me this, or I remember what Jack said. And you know what? That's what's going to make you better. Once you start thinking, and again, I'm thinking you'll agree with me, Tom. Yeah. Once you start thinking, you can't tell me how to be a referee. You can't tell me how to judge. You're lost, bro.
Yes, that's
a dangerous.
One thing about this sport, and you know it better than anybody, and so do I. This sport will humble you in a second. And I'll tell you, when something happens in that ring, I don't care how many friends you got, you feel like you're on an island all by yourself.
That's right.
And you've got nothing but sharks swimming around that island, and you're trying to swim to shore, and you're going, oh shit.
Yeah.
So it could be a very lonely place.
So Tom, let me ask you, these big fights. Let me ask you, how does it feel to be in there with Davis?
I'll tell you this, and I'll give Davis credit. The first big fight I ever done for Davis, I was asked to go to Atlanta, and it was Davis against Mario Barrios.
Which was a great fight. Great fight. Phenomenal
fight. Just great fight. Great atmosphere. The people in Atlanta, just great sports fans, and that whole arena, just everything was real electric. The promotion behind it all, it is one of the most fun events I'd ever been to and been part of. And then to be part of that main event was just, it's beyond belief. But besides that, and going back to your question, the first world title fight I ever did, I reached out to Pat Russell, I reached out to Jack, I think I even talked to you, Ray, but I said, what can I expect, or what should I do on this first fight? And I remember it was at StubHub Center, and I remember Pat Russell told me something. He said, get in that ring, take a deep breath, and just take a look around and take in everything. And you know what? I've done that with every big fight, and I do it with most fights and most cards anyway. But on the big ones, I always get in there, I take a look around before Jimmy makes his announcements or before any of the announcers make their announcements. I take a look around and go, how lucky am I to be doing what I'm doing here?
And on another note, Tom, how do you feel when you heard Jimmy Lennon saying, and the third man in the ring, Tom Taylor? Huh? Isn't that awesome?
You know what? If you'd have told me 15 years ago that Jimmy Lennon Jr. would even know my name, that I would know Ray Corona, or I would know Jack Reese, or I'd know some of these guys, or hell, I'm doing some of the biggest fights now in the world with between.
Even after we pass, they'll still be.
That's history, man. That nothing can erase that. So I feel very, very blessed, very blessed.
But Davis, going back to Davis, I mean, we could talk. We'll be honest. We can't talk about fights coming up, but we could talk about the fights that pass. Absolutely. Just to keep us safe from controversy. That's why. You know what I mean? I know Tom, like I said in my last podcast, we wouldn't sell our career for nothing, or any fighter or any promoter or whatever any fan wants to accuse us of. This is an awesome job. We're blessed, but we can only talk about the past fights, Yeah. But Davis, his footwork is ridiculous.
I'll tell you guys, he is nicknamed Tank for a reason. I cannot believe how much power this guy can generate in that size of a body. When I got to the arena, he has a very big entourage. Yeah. But I'll tell you this. I
don't know how true it is. They say everywhere he goes, he sells out.
Oh, it's unbelievable, Ray. It's unbelievable. And the funny thing is his fight, and I'll jump forward to another fight I did of his here at Staples Center.
That's right.
It was him and Isak Cruz. Now, that's one of my favorite fights I've ever done, because that was one of the most competitive, unbelievable fights I've ever done.
And he didn't stop Cruz.
No, he didn't stop Cruz. But I'll tell you this, it was the largest gate Staples Center had ever seen.
Yeah, I did the undercard on that one, yeah.
But he's a true professional. I walked into that, they have, the weigh-ins, it was great, big publicity and all that kind of crap, and entourage everywhere. And I went to his corner man, Calvin, who's, the guy's loud, boisterous, but he's all business as well. And I said, Calvin, I understand you guys got your entourage, you guys got to do your thing, but please, when you see me walk in that locker room tomorrow to do pre-fight instructions, I'm going to need your help. I need everyone silent. And I'll tell you, Ray, I walked in there, dead silence. He calmed everybody down.
That says a lot about him.
You had Gervonta on the ground stretching. He stood up, incredibly respectful. You know, people warned me, this is going to be the toughest fight of your career. This is going to be tough because his fights get crazy. Both guys get crazy. There's a lot of fouls. There's a lot of this. And you know how I preach pre-fight instructions, right?
Yeah,
I take my pre-fight
we'll get
instructions
to that right
very,
now,
very serious. But he stood up, introduced myself again, because obviously we'd met at the weigh-ins prior, introduced myself, and he sat there and it was yes, sir, no, sir, yes, sir. We had a great understanding and we had a fantastic fight. And it was, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure and honor to be part of that fight.
Yes, very. So since you brought it up, what's your instructions prior to the fight? When you go in there, what's it all about, in your opinion?
My opinion is, and I got criticized a lot by some of the elder statesmen, so to speak, early on. And the criticism I got...
Can I push the button on that one?
Statesman? I knew I probably went way over your head with that one.
Push it, bro.
I'll get you a thesaurus afterwards and you can start looking up some of these words.
Yeah.
But some of the older referees and judges, you know, and I'll name some names, Marty Dankin and a couple others, nice guys, and they always wanted everyone to be the best, and I'd get quizzed all the time. But Marty's biggest criticism of me was, I hear that your pre-fight instructions are too strict. And I got to tell you, Ray, I told Marty I'll never change.
Yeah.
Because that's the only time we get to establish, and I hate to say the word control. We're not trying to control anybody. We're trying to manage expectations. We're trying to manage what's going to happen in that ring that night and what I can expect from the fighter or what I expect from him, what he or she can expect from me. And I do. You know, on a championship level, you don't got to go through rules and regulations, all that. These guys have been around, these females have been around for a long time, they know. So it's, you know, how to, you know, react, you know, if you guys are holding and the kind of command I'm going to give you to try to get you to break and break clean. Ideally, I don't want to have to get in between, you have to separate all the time. I'd love for them to be able to work out of it on their own.
And to toot my horn, that's where I get that from. When I see Tom there, work out of it. So you know what? I'm very vocal on that. Work out of it. I don't even have to touch him, and I notice Tom's the same way. Yeah. He's not touching him. Agree with me, Tom, but the best compliment you can give to a referee is, who did that fight?
Yeah, didn't even know you did that fight?
Yeah.
That's a beautiful compliment. That means
or you watch a show and say, wow, that was Tom that did that fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that says a lot because, I'm not gay, guys, but he's easy on the eyes, obviously. You know, the ladies always say it.
Okay, he's not gay anymore.
Not gay anymore. That's right. That's right. But you know what I mean? And that's the best thing when you tell somebody, you did that fight? You know what? That's when you can go and say, you know what? That fight, that particular fight, I did well because I didn't get involved, you know? Yeah. And a lot of times, especially these littler guys, they want to work inside, and if you break them right away, you're taking
their game away from them. Their
some guys I think just break too much, you know, and I just
don't look over my right shoulder.
Yeah, don't look over. You know what I mean? And they just break. You know, like come on, man.
You gotta let these guys work, and
That's
you know
right.
what, they put in the work, that their training camp, the time away from their families. They sacrifice a lot. Their game plan is to get inside, especially when you take a taller fighter against a shorter fighter, and that shorter fighter finally gets on the inside, and then you're going to break them right away, and you're going to take that. I mean, it took them 3-4 punches to get in there. So we got to let these guys, you know, work out of it, and the less we can be involved, the more. People aren't there to watch us, Ray. Yeah. You know, they're there to see the fighters, and the more we can stay uninvolved and let these guys just, you know, I say we manage the chaos. You know, we manage the chaos and make sure the rules and regulations are followed and nobody's taking unnecessary damage. But guess what? Even the winner's going to get hurt. And that's just the sport that we've chosen to be part of and that they've chosen to earn a living in. So we got to respect that.
So what other fights come to your mind where you say, like, wow? Because mind you guys, and this is no disrespect to the club fighters. I mean, These guys come out, 4-rounders, they give everything. They're not worried about money. But from that to these mega fights that you've done, what fights stand out where you're like, wow, this guy's skilled? You know what I mean?
You know, Deontay Wilder against Sergey Lakovich. Deontay knocked him out in the first round, and he hit him so hard, Sergey hit the ground and was in convulsions. And that's when I was like, my God, this man has a right hand like no other. But as far as some of my favorite ones I've been part of, you know, the first super mega fight that I think I was really part of was Chocolatito Gonzalez against Cuadras. And that fight Chocolatito.
Real
Go
quick,
ahead.
Tom. I'm sorry, guys, but some of these fights have rights to it, so we can't actually show it on the YouTube channel, but we could show it on TikTok and Instagram. But yeah, I remember
Copyright
that fight.
my ass. I'll talk about it all day long.
That's right.
But that fight was just insane. Chocolatito was going for his fourth.
That was here at the Staple, no?
That was at was it Staples or was it Honda Center? I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah.
But he was going for his fourth title in a fourth different division. No Nicaraguan had ever done it, and between the two fighters in 12 rounds, they threw almost 2,000 punches. And nonstop action.
It was a rough,
it was
brutal
an
fight,
unbelievable fight.
Yeah.
But then you go back to Davis and Barrios, or Davis and Cruz. I mean, that Davis Cruz fight was one of my favorites I was part of. Yeah. But
So
I'll tell you real quick,
Yeah.
not to toot the own horn like you say, but I'm actually in the Guinness Book of World Records as the referee for the most punches thrown in a 10-round fight, and it was Rooster against, I should have had that pulled up. Remember, who Rooster, I'm talking about club fighters, right? We're talking about not a small show, it's still Fantasy Springs, but not a big world title fight, but talk about a fun fight. These guys, as soon as that bell would ring, one went right to the other side and kept them on the ropes, and they were just battling the shit out of each other.
I think I remember
And in a
that,
10-round fight, they threw over 3,200 punches. So that one's actually in the Guinness Book of World Records, and luckily I'm in there as the referee.
Wow. So is the Rooster still fighting?
I don't think so.
I haven't seen him in a while.
I haven't seen him in a long
Yeah.
time. I think he's just tending to the hen house.
That was a good one. So where have you been in the world in some of these places that we actually get paid to go? I mean, aren't we blessed?
I mean, some of these places that you and I would be like, there's no way in hell we're ever going to go there. But to do a title fight in Russia was amazing. I've never been to Moscow in my life, and quite honestly, I don't know if that was like on my bucket list to go to Moscow, because typically I'm a tropical weather kind of person. So, but I've been to Moscow, Bangkok, Tokyo a number of times, Australia, Germany, all over Mexico, and my favorite place is Mexico. I love the culture, I love the people, I love the food, and then it's just there's so many beautiful places down there. But my favorite place is probably Mexico City. Just the history behind it, and I was lucky enough to do that fight with a buddy of mine. Max DeLuca was a referee. Was a judge, and he and I took a day and we went out exploring, and just to go into some of those old churches and the old architecture down there, and just the history of just Mexico City alone. It's beautiful down there. Yeah.
So tell me, before you get into a big fight, like, let's just say the boss told you, hey, you got a world title fight coming next week. What's your game plan? How do you get prepared for your...
Ray, it's a great question, but the world title fight and the club show, I do the same exact thing. Right. I've going back to my first mentor.
And that's going to be a check for the boss to say, okay, you know what I mean?
That's going back to my original mentor, David Mendoza. When I got into the pros, he said, he gave me some guidelines. Don't do anything that day. Don't tell your buddy, hey, I'll help you move a refrigerator in the morning. You got to fight in the afternoon. Have a light meal. And the first event I ever did, I literally got to the event 3 hours early because I was so excited, and there was nobody there yet. So he always told me to get a light meal. So I went out and I got a BLT on white bread, no toast, fries, and a Diet Coke. Had a fantastic
and he has a
event.
body like that, and I'm dieting all day long. What's up? What am I doing wrong?
Had a great event. My first event, I had to stop 2 fights, and the other one went to distance.
This is a pro show or amateur?
First pro show.
Oh, okay.
And Pat Russell was the mentor that night, was the lead head official. Oh, he was a senior.
Real quick, did Dave actually see you turn pro?
Oh, yeah. Dave went to quite a few of my fights, and we shared a lot of stuff.
I know we went to his funeral, and you kind of, is that the word, orchestrated all of us to go,
Yeah.
But I know.
Yeah. I mean,
so he got to see you.
So he got to see me a lot.
Awesome.
And I'll tell you another story about that just absolutely melted my heart. That his wife called me and told me after his funeral. But going back to the day of, everybody in my circle knows, don't call me, don't bother me, don't ask me to do anything for you that day. And I hate to sound like it, but much like the fighters, where you got to be selfish. As officials, I'm selfish that day. Don't call me to ask me to do anything. I'm not going to take you anywhere. I'm not going to pick you up from anywhere. I get up in the morning. I still have to do a workout. It's part of my daily routine, but I'll never do a leg workout that day. And I always go light on everything just not to get any injuries. But I'll eat a decent breakfast. I have to do my BLT. I've done it. That first event, I did my BLT, fries and a Diet Coke. And ever since then, I've always done it. And it's just, to me, it's superstitious, but it's what I do. And then I always get to the arena. If our call time is 2 o'clock, I'll be there at noon. I got to be in that setting. My mind, it gets me into the mood. I got to walk around the arena. You see me, Ray. I don't sit still too often. I got to keep walking around that arena. It gets in your blood. It gets you going.
With that said, it's because those 4-rounders deserve as much as the 12-rounders, the title fights.
Ray, the worst thing I've heard a referee say is, I'm only doing a club show, or, I've only got a 4-rounder. And I've literally said to him, do you realize that 4-rounder debut, he's got probably 40 or 50 of his buddies, friends, family in the crowd. This is his WBC World Championship fight tonight.
That's right.
You've got to treat it that way, just like you are a Gervonta Davis fight or a Tyson Fury fight. I mean, it's important to him and him or her, and it's their debut. So you got to treat them all the same and give them all the same respect, in my opinion.
Hey guys, we're just going to take a moment for our sponsors. We appreciate you. And again, if you want to come on and sponsor me, send me an email at thirdmanintheringpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you to HDC Construction in Ontario, California. They're a national leader in commercial construction with a proven track record of expertise in cold storage solutions and epoxy flooring. Their team works closely with you to efficiently meet all compliance standards while maintaining budget commitments and completing projects on time. HDC Construction works with Fortune 500 companies and small businesses throughout the country in the areas of steel stud framing, refrigeration panels, dock doors, comprehensive drain systems, fire sprinklers, block walls, and much more. If you have any modernization or full service construction needs for your business, HDC Construction is here to help. For bids, quotes, or a free consultation, call 909-626-0214 or visit their website at www.hdconstruction.com.
Okay, so those are our sponsors. We're gonna get back to our episode, and thank you so much. So do you go to gyms and get in the ring still? Or?
I do. I'm fortunate, being in Orange County, we've got a lot of boxing clubs. But for me, if it's been 3-4 weeks since I've did my last event, I want to get in and do some sparring. I want to get in and move around with some fighters. So I've been very lucky in Santa Ana. We've got a boxing club real close to my son's high school, so I'll go there a little early and I'll jump in the ring with those guys.
Your son goes to Mater Dei, no?
He does. He goes to Mater Dei High School.
Awesome school. Yeah. Football player. Yeah.
And volleyball. Yeah. In fact, he's a better volleyball player, but
just as handsome as Dad too, man.
Nah, he's better looking.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my thing. And then Ray, after the event, like I said, we've got a great group of guys that we hang out with, and some female officials, but we all can clown afterwards and have a great time. Yeah. We clown before the event and we get on each other, but I'll tell you, that bell rings, everybody's serious, and we're all on the same page, and it's all about the fighters and making sure we give them a good show. But after the event, we'll go out, and then I go home, Ray, after that. The first 2-3 years, it took me 2 hours just to come down from that high. But I go home and I swear, I thank God that both those fighters, or if I had 4 fights that night, 8 fighters went home safe. They're with their families. Hopefully I've made the right decisions and I haven't affected their careers in a negative way. But I do. I thank God that we're put into a position where literally we have 2 people's lives in our hands, and we hopefully have saved some people that didn't need to take unnecessary punishment.
Have you ever been accused, Tom, of stopping a fight too late or too early?
Too early.
Too early,
Too early, yeah. It was a very big fight in Fantasy Springs, and it was Elwin Soto against Angel Acosta. Acosta was a champion, 12-round championship fight. Acosta was a champion. He went down twice in the earlier rounds, one in the 3rd and one again in the 5th or 6th, but he was ahead on the scorecards. So your champion's been down twice. He's ahead on the scorecards going into the 12th and final round. All right?
Oh, wow. The last round even,
Last round. Both fighters come out, and Angel gets just stung by Soto. And he literally, you know the term we use, posture. Yeah. He froze like this. And I saw him freeze like that right up against the ropes, and I made the split-second decision to jump in, Ray, and I stopped it. And everybody went crazy. The champion, you're stopping a champion, you got to let him go out on his shield. And I get all that, but a couple things happened after that. I had 50% of the people just saying, terrible stoppage, how could you do that to a champion? 50% of the people in the press saying, great stoppage, you saved that guy from just getting nailed. And, I had a lot of people I needed to talk to. The nice thing was the WBO was the sanctioning body that night, and they actually sent a letter and made a call to our chief, our executive officer saying, we like the stoppage. He made the right move.
Yeah, because I didn't hear anything.
But I'll tell you, I took a lot of criticism online from these people who just unfortunately don't understand what we gotta do.
Monday morning quarterbacks,
and hey, they have a right to be. They paid to watch it. They want to be entertained and see it. But this isn't the 50s, 60s, and 70s where we want to see guys go and get completely obliterated. This isn't the Rocky 16 where guys are taking unnecessary blows and just ruining their lives. But
and mind you, we go to training about every 6 months. Yeah. A couple of times Tom's been our trainer, so we're always training. As far as I know, I'm not bad mouthing the other states, but
I don't know anybody who does more training than we do.
California.
And then as fortunate as we are, with Jack starting sole arbiter, it's to be part of that and to do that additional training where we can help that entry level referee coming in all the way up to the guys who have 100, 200 fights on their belt that want to get to that very next top level and start doing world title fights. So that's a great opportunity as well. But going back to that Soto fight, took a lot of criticism for that. The nice thing is, Ray, like I said, it was split down the middle. Half the people hated it, half the people loved it. Two things happened after that made me feel kind of good. It was a Golden Boy fighter. He was the champion. It was promoted by Golden Boy. And I worked an event a week later with him, and I asked Eric Diaz if we could talk. Before the event started, and we went to a private room, and I said, listen, I know there was a lot of emotions going on last week. I know there was a lot of, there was your champion. I said, but you guys asked me a lot to be on these events. And I said, I hope you can understand that because of that judgment I've used in past, that's what I saw that night. And coming from a promoter, he said, you know what? Because it was you in that ring, I walked away because I didn't want to say something because the emotions were high that night. He goes, a lot of other guys that were in there, I may have gone off and gone crazy. He goes, but because you were in there, and we do respect, your decision, because we always get a fair fight from you, no matter what. You never favor anybody. He goes, I had to walk away because of that, and I felt good about that. Yeah. And then the second thing was, there was a photographer who was at that fight ringside on the side where I stopped the fight. And he said, I've got a picture for you that you need. And he pulls out this picture, and it's literally Soto. He's got his arm like this, and you see every vein, and all you see is Costa's head right here. And he's this close to nailing him where he's not defending himself as I jump in. And he says, if you need any proof that you did the right thing, that's it right there. And I'm like, and the good thing is, Ray, is we can sit here and debate, was it one punch too early? Was it one punch too late? But what we're not saying is, it was one punch too late, and the guy's sipping, soup through a straw right now, and he's learning how to talk and walk and write again.
I tend to, I keep kicking that horse, the Richard Colon fight, and I personally think, this is just me, Ray Corona talking, nobody else. I personally think the referee was doing something else, but that poor kid, Richard Colon, he'll never be the same, He'll never be the same. The saddest
video I saw was, his birthday was a month ago?
Yes.
And they try to help him blow out a candle on his cake. And it's like, people don't get it. We're in that ring, and we're there to save two guys from any unnecessary punishment, and our job is to make sure they go home to their families. And we take it very serious, but there's another element to it where, we've got the stakeholders. We talk about it a lot, the stakeholders out there. Stakeholders are his family. They've got time invested in him or her being away from them. And all the struggles they go through coming up through the ranks. You got the promoter who's got obviously tons of money into this, the TV network, the fans who paid money to be ringside or even be in the arena. And then you got your fans on TV that if it's a pay-per-view. So we've got so much to think about in there. And then on top of it, this guy's fighting for, let's say it's a title fight, or it's an eliminator, or let's say he's 18, 19 and 0, and he's trying to get to that next level, and it's like, God, if you do something just a little wrong, you knock him down, and he's got to do what, 3, 4, 5 more fights, thousands, 2,000 more punches to get back to that level. So it's his ability or her ability to earn a living for their family that we have to take in consideration. And it's a lot. I mean, people think we go in there and as long as you can count to 10, you're a fucking referee. Well, no, guys, it's not that. You know, there's so much involved into what we do and the philosophy behind what we do, but then you got that personal element too, is, Jesus, man, you can't, you know, why let a guy keep taking a beating if he doesn't have to, just to let him finish a fight? Or
yeah, some guys are too tough for their own self, you know.
We see it all the time, Ray, and we see it all the time when we got, and I saw the podcast earlier with you and Jack, but we see it all the time with fighters with their fathers in the corner. You know, they'll never want to stop for their fathers, and that's when we become a surrogate father, so to speak, where we gotta.
Tom's actually refereed my own son, you know, and man, it's I'm stressed out. You see me before
I see you
a fight,
both in the corner, and I'll tell you, I don't hear nothing but that woman right there screaming away. And I'll tell you, I want her on my side if I was boxing, because she's a great motivator. But you know, as a referee, and you've got one of your great friends and their son is in there, there's extra pressure. But you know what? I don't give a shit, because I felt honored that you guys had asked me to be that referee for him, because you knew, number one, he was going to be taken care of. Number two, he's going to get a fair fight.
And to be honest, let me stop. I asked for Tom to be the referee, so for the sole reason he'll stop it in time. At least that's my confidence in it. I'm not worried about him scolding my son, or my son breaks a rule or does a foul. I just keep my son safe. And if my son gets mad at me or gets mad at Tom, so be it. I just don't want my wife being mad at Tom. No, you know what I mean? If it goes the wrong way.
Trust me.
And you know what?
I'd have to sleep with one eye open the rest of my life.
That's right. But yeah. So has anybody been hurt bad with you in your shift?
You know, knock on that wood, other than Sergey Lakovich going down into convulsions, but that's something that can't be avoided. That was a one punch just from one of the heaviest hitters in boxing history. You know, he took it right to the temple and he went down and convulsed.
And educate the fans real quick, Tom. Some of these fighters come from the gym to the fight hurt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I look for, you know, on that ring walk. You know, when they get that announcement and they're walking into the ring, you know, I'm looking at them.
Let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
Look at Tom when he's refereeing, and when the bell rings, you'll see Tom looking at the guy the way he's walking. I notice that a lot.
I always look. Is there a limp? Yeah. Is there a grimace? Is there, you know, when they're putting the Vaseline on, does he do this or does he do that? Because maybe he's a little tender in the eyes or around the nose or the chin. You know, you look for the little things. But when it comes down to it, Ray, they're fighters. I mean, it's
a brutal sport.
This is a brutal sport. It's a hurt sport. Like I said, even the winners are going to get hurt. The winners come out with marks on their face and they're hurt. But it's a sport they've chosen to learn and to make money for their families. And it's our job to give them the best we can in there and make sure that at least they get out of there safely.
Right, Tom, you want to give a shout out to anybody?
You know, Ray, I gotta tell you, you know, and again, we screw around with each other all the time. We joke and we kid, but it takes a lot of balls to do what you're doing here. And when you first told me about this, I'm like, Ray, doing a podcast? Get the fuck out of here! But I'll tell you, that first one I saw with Jack, I thought, wow, man, that thing looks really cool, and I'm glad you asked me and felt honored that you asked me to be part of it. But just the people in the sport, the mentors I've had, you know, starting with David Mendoza and God rest his soul again. And real quick, if I can go back to that story about David, you know, his wife called me one time and said that they were in Tahoe. I'm sorry, not Tahoe. They were at the river, and they were, you know, boating and fishing and doing whatever. And then they went to the bar at night, and just so happens fights were on ESPN. And try not to get choked up, but they were watching the fights, and I had the main event on ESPN. And she said the look on David's face was like one of a father watching his son. Yeah. And he said, she said, David never looked at me. He said, he's just staring at the TV, and he says, look at him. Look at how he's controlling that ring. Look at his spacing. Look at this and look at that. And look what he's doing. And she said it was such a pride thing that David was experiencing that night of, it was like a father-son thing, and I'll never be able to thank him enough. And I used to tell him that all the time when he was alive. What can I do for you? Anything. And
friendship, sometimes that's all you need.
And he was a complicated guy. A lot of people didn't understand David. For some reason, he and I clicked really, really well. I understood his.
We were good with, me and him were good with each other too.
But then to come in and then to meet Jack and Pat and you and even Jerry and guys who they really they want to leave the sport better than when they first came in, and that's what we should aim to. And sports fans out there, we appreciate you guys. We love you guys, male and female. It's great to go to an event and people want to take pictures with you and this and that. But please understand the pressures we're under. We've got, unlike the 60s and 70s, even the 80s and even the 90s, you had to read about what happened at a fight unless you were there. Now, before Ray and I step out of that ring, there's enough people tweeting, Twitter, this, that, boom, bang, bing. There's 5 or 6 articles written by the time our feet hit the ground outside the ring. And whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, it's just a different atmosphere now. So we're under a completely different level of scrutiny, pressure. And as fans, again, I think, we talked about this earlier, I think it's our job to be ambassadors to this beautiful sport, this sweet science that we call it, that all I can ask for is, and the fans have been great about this, but I'll have people come up to me sometimes at Fantasy Springs or in a crowd and, hey, why did you do this? And you should did, and I let them speak their piece. And then I'll, in a calm voice, because I never want to combat them, because it's their right. They have a right to have an opinion, shit. But what they don't know, they don't know. So it's our job to educate them and not demean them or not talk down to them. But I'll tell them, hey, I appreciate your thoughts, but here is why I did what I did, and here's a philosophy behind it. And I'll break it down, or I'll break down a rule for them. And Ray, they come into it like this, and then as you're talking, you see those shoulders drop, and they look at you and they go, I never thought of it. I never knew that. And then the last thing I always say to them is, now do me a favor. You know it. Now tell 5 of your friends and tell your other boxing friends, and you can be the educator. So, don't be afraid to come to us, because we welcome the questions. We welcome, and if you want to criticize, have at it. But give us that opportunity to explain why we do what we do and the philosophy behind it. And I think it's going to make a more educated fan where people can understand us a little bit more and have a little more empathy about just what kind of pressures we have in there.
Well, there it is, fans. Tom Taylor. I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. Again, go on YouTube. Ref Popeye Ray or Third Man in the Ring podcast, and subscribe, tell your friends. I want to thank Ben Lira. I didn't have a dad growing up, but Ben Lira was my dad. South El Monte Gym, and we just want to thank you, and again, tell a friend. God bless, guys.
Thanks, Ray.